Hello children, our today's topic is related to execution of any Python program which is compiled or written by the user or programmer. Uh, the topic is flow of control or flow of execution. Let's first understand what does this flow of execution means. The interpreter has to execute the program or the code. Now when the interpreter does this, what particular pattern the interpreter follows to execute the various statements present in the code or the program. That's what is known as control. How the control is shifting from top to bottom in the program. It is always fixed that the first statement has to be executed at the very beginning. However, in the meanwhile, while executing the program, the pattern may get changed. Now, how the pattern changes or what happens, why the order of execution of the statements changes, that depends on different types of statements present in the program. And when the interpreter is executing the various statements, running from top to the last statement which has been executed, there's a flow of execution, and the same thing is known as flow of control selected or used by the interpreter. Now let's go on to the different types of flows which may be there in the program. Now there is one sequential statements is the most simplest one. When the interpreter executes the statement one by one from top to bottom without making the change in its order. This means the first statement will be executed first, the second will be executed second, the third will be executed at the third, and if there are n statements, that nth statement will be executed at the last. Considering that that nth statement is the last one in the program. So that's what about the sequential flow of execution. Now let's see one example we have taken here. Program to find area of a circle. Here you can see this statement. It asks the user to enter a value, and it's a directly input, so the user may enter a float type value, so that value will go and stored in R. Thereafter it calculates area 3.14 star R, and then prints its area as A. Fine. Now the output produced by execution of this will be, first, the value being received by the code from the user, that is 7, and then area is being calculated, which is 153.86. Now this is the simplest one and is known as sequential. Then now we have selective category. Now what is it? Selective means a block or a set of statements are selected by the interpreter for its execution. For its execution means it's not that others are not executed. Others are also executed, but this selective approach or selective statement in the program forces the interpreter to execute the set of statements stated in its block, and this is achieved by making use of if and else. If is followed by a condition, then there's a block. The block will be the set of statements for if. Thereafter there may be a else statement, and then another else. So you can see here this if statement, there will be a condition, then statements, so then else, and then statements. That's how. Now there is another parallel one for it. If we have more conditions which are to be checked one by one, then the option after or is there. If condition, the set of statements. Now here it's not directly else, it is elif. The second condition, that those will be stated here, then else, and the last set of statements will be stated at the last. So if the first condition is true, the first set of statements will be executed. If it fails, then interpreter will check for the condition with elif. If that condition is correct, then its associated block of statements will be executed. If that also even fails that condition, then it will go to else. Since there is no condition here, so the set of statements associated with the block of else will be executed. So both if and elif conditions will blocks will be skipped thereafter. Now we have an example here. uh, P stores a value, a float type value. T again stores a value. It may be float type, integer type, both, but basically float type, because if it is integer, then we write int before input. So P and T will store it. Now here, that's this if statement says T greater than, here you can see I'm highlighting it, if T is greater than 10. Now simple interest will be calculated like this. Simple interest will be this formula will be selected. As such, formula for simple interest is P into R into T upon 100 always, but depending on the time, that how long the principal has been given, then otherwise the interpreter will use the second calculation, or second which is there with the else. So SI will be calculated on this. So if the number of years are more than 10, the first statement in the block of if will be executed. If it fails, then the statement SI equals to PT 15/100 will be executed. That's how it will work. And then finally it will print the SI calculated. So that's how this output will work for it. Enter principal amount, enter any time, and then simple interest calculated and displayed because of print. Now this is another example. Here we have a choice to be used to calculate area of square or rectangle or triangle. So these will provide us conditions for if. Now first, input any choice, that is first means area of square. So if C double equals to 1, that means we are talking about we have to calculate the area of square. So in this case, the block of if has statements for this purpose, for calculation of area of a square. So first enter any value for the side of square, then area will be calculated here, uh, S into S, and then finally this area will be printed. Area equals to A, which was calculated here. Now afterwards, elif C double equals to 2. C double equals to 2 means we are talking about this area, which is area of a rectangle. So here it will ask for you both length and breadth. So this asks for length, and X stores length, Y stores the second side, we generally call it as breadth. Z is the third side, it is considered in 3D, and then S is calculated as X plus Y plus Z slash 2, and the formula of calculating area afterwards, and this formula is A equals to whatsoever here stated. This is to calculate area of a three-dimensional rectangle, and then this area is being printed again. This is for rectangle. And else means if you press and other than 1, 2 and 3, it will print this error message. Fine, this is calculation of areas for. Now we take another one. After selective, what we have gone to sequence, we have gone to selective, we have third approach, that is known as iteration. Iteration is defined as repeated execution of a set of statements which are there present in the loop. It can be a for loop or can be a while loop. Now there are some elements of the iterative statement, might be for or might be while, which controls the iteration. Controlling an iteration means every iteration it should stop after getting executed some finite number of times. That finiteness may be either 0 times or might be 5 times, 50 times, 500 times, 5000 times, but it should stop somewhere. So that's what. So there is one counter variable for this which takes care, and the counter variable gets updated. There's a test condition. The test condition checks whether the counter variable satisfy the condition. If it is satisfied, then execution is done. So let's go on to both for and while one by one. For loop, you can see the syntax of using for loop is this one. For variable in range, start stop plus one step. Now here it means there will be an initial value of the variable, and that initial value will be start. This will be the initial value. The last value will be, if you are specifying any number here, then the for loop makes a control. It doesn't reaches to the last value, rather it stops one before that. So if you wish to go on to the last stop position, then you need to specify it as stop plus 1. Then there's a third member here, that is step. Step means increment in the value of start by how much. This is the start. If you want to increase it by 1, then you can specify step as 1. If you want to update start by 2, then you can do it. For the step, the value will be 2 here, and so on, followed by the set of statements in the block. Then we have a while loop here. While statement makes use of a condition. This is the condition. Now this condition will control the finiteness of execution of loop, and the set of statements will be here in this block. Now let's take an example for. Here the code asks from the user to enter a number and goes and gets stored at n. Then the for loop is stated here for I in range 1 comma n plus 1. Now so if the user enters 10 for n, the parameters in the range function will become 1 comma 10 plus 1, that means 11. So this print command will print it. Now let's see, enter any number 10 and the values are displayed one by one, and then 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. These all values have not been displayed in together. Rather the loop runs for each value of I here, for I one by one, and since you are specifying for the second argument as 10, so this will become 11. 10 plus 1, so the for loop will run from 1 to 10. 1 minus this value n plus 1, so n plus 1 is 11 here, so 1 to 10. So those values have been printed. Now this is another example for loop, and to find the sum of the natural numbers of one set. Now you can see here n stores any number, then sum is initialized with 0. This is 0. Now this for loop, the for loop helps you to work. Say if you are working to calculate the sum from 1 to 10, then the first argument in range function will be 1 and the second argument will be 10 plus 1. since n is not known here, so 10 plus 1 will be 11, and then 1 to 10 loop will run for 1 to 10, and this sum equals to sum plus 1 will evaluate the final sum, and this will print. Now here let's check how execution will occur. You will enter a number, they have entered 5, so the loop will run for 1 to 5, because 5 plus 1 will become 6 here in this range, and for loop will run for 1 to 5, and the sum will be evaluated by the interpreter by the code and will be displayed. And there are more examples being specified here, you can see. So that was one for loop which we have used, and the syntax of using that for loop was for the variable in range 1 comma the start value comma the stop value, and then at the last step plus 1. If we don't specify any value for the step, then by default the interpreter uses it by 1, means 1 will be the default value. And there can be negative value also, and negative value will help the loop to run in the reverse way, means the value will be decremented. Fine. So this was explanation regarding the loops, regarding the selective statement and the sequential statement.